Action Comics 1029. Philip Kennedy Johnson writing with Phil Hester on the art. This is, of course, the second half of. It's funny how we just talked about this with the Robin story in the Bat books, which is the backup, but here we have one story split over two. Although this was obviously always written as two issues, right. Which is the portal's open. Superman and John are fighting these things off, and this boils down to John telling Clark, "Look, you're not okay. You're clearly hurt. You can't do this." And Superman saying, "No, I can. It's not as bad as it looks." But ultimately, when they save the day, and it's John who actually saves the day, which is kind of the key dramatic point of the issue, is that this is John stepping out of his father's shadow, and that idea of like there's a point for the kid's life where you're the hero, you're impenetrable, you can do no wrong. But it's not just that eventually they see you as human, it's that then you realize that your kid steps out in front of you and actually does something that, if not something that you can't do, or advances in a way that you couldn't have, realize that, okay, they're not just like something I'm protecting anymore. They are making their own world, they're doing their own things, and they're maybe going above and beyond. And Clark phrases it at one point, saying, "I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to be not relevant." It was useful, I think was the word he used, but something to that effect. So basically just to the issue, overall, obviously some important details. Superman does hear that Amanda Waller's running this and is aware that Star Labs, their space station, did cause this. It is their fault, so that's a plot thread. There's obviously an epilogue cliffhanger, which we'll get to separately because it's kind of on its own. But yeah, and Clark apologizes for basically not accepting there's a chance that he could have died, and tells a story about Pa Kent and the day that this effectively happened with him because he fell off a ladder, which is obviously a much simpler version of we were fighting aliens coming through a portal together.
It's kind of also that sentiment when you realize that adults don't know what they're doing.
Yes.
Like, as a kid, you think they have all the answers, and then the moment that you see how flawed they are because they are humans, right?
Yeah. I saw a tweet today that was like 90% of adulthood is going, "Oh, for F's sake," every time the phone rings. And I'm like, yeah, that's really true.
Yeah, 100%. Why are you calling me? This could have been a text, right?
Like, it's never good. It's like, oh, you do more work. It's like, no, go away.
Right. So I did like that with Pa Kent because it's not just on the, he's Superman, he could have caught him, right? But it was Pa Kent being embarrassed that he's being seen as vulnerable to his son. Because, in a meta sense, every parent wants to appear as Superman or Superwoman to their kid. And the day that you can't anymore, a little piece of you kind of goes away. And it's all, that whole sentiment played out through these last two issues, with John takes the lead with that singularity gun.
Yeah, well, that's the flip of this here, is that the moment where you feel a little sad that you're not like this Superman to your kid anymore, is also, it oddly lines up more or less usually where your kid will then do something where you realize, oh, they actually don't need me to be the Superman anymore. They are doing things on their own. But yeah, the big thing John does in this issue is that they can close the portal with this singularity gun, this big cannon thing they've got from the space station, but it has to be fired from inside the other end of the portal.
From the other side, yeah.
So so probably the best part of the art in the issue, I think, is John firing this and then sort of speeding back to fly through the portal before the beam hits the portal so he gets back home.
It's a very Superman moment.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we've seen Clark do this how many times? Something similar, and so John gets to break out of his own golden age here. But yeah, it's very well handled. I love everything that Johnson's doing with the characterizations. Because like this is just, monsters coming from a portal, right? Amanda Waller's trying to test Superman or whatever. But what makes it special is just that sentiment throughout.
The whole time of John being terrified that this is the final battle, because
this is it.
He makes it clear that it's a little bit unclear in the future what the exact cause was. It's just this is the last major sighting of Superman, and there's not even that. I mean, maybe it still is. Maybe he. The irony could have been maybe he didn't die here, but maybe this is where he retired. I think the reality is we know he's going to go and do some of that War World stuff, right? Because that's where we're going next.
But it's
But-
also what I like that too is that it tells, well, the future could be wrong, right? How many times does things change in the DCU that
Yeah.
something changes in the present that now changes the future, you know? But I do like that Clark never brings that up, though. He listens to John, to his concerns, you know, because he's Superman.
I like that he doesn't at first, though, because at first he's just
Right.
like, no, it's fine. I'm Superman. I got this. And let's go
Right.
out there and do it. And it's not until after that, that it's over that he was like, I might have been wrong on that one. That could
Right.
have been it.
Right.
Yeah. And the apology he gives is kind of for not listening to him, for not accepting that maybe he's right, maybe he has to accept that he can't do this. It's just, again, more very human facets to add to Superman. So once again, to anyone who ever says Superman's hard to write because he's not relatable, I say you're just not a good writer.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the big cliffhanger, though, is that they are being watched.
Mhm.
They're being watched, and there's a discussion about, this the sun, he's getting powerful. But then there's another, ominous voice saying, but no, he's not the real threat. We're here for Superman. And I mean, it's not a huge leap to see where this little reveal's going. That this is the War World stuff coming into it. But I don't know the name of this character, if it's like a character who's like commonly showing up, but it's like a little baby in like a tank as the head.
I've never seen it before. I think it might be a new thing. I saw Talking Superman say it felt like Phil Hester was really channeling Mike Mignola, and I have to say, definitely feels that.
Mm-hmm.
I could see it. So no, I'm excited to see where the story. I am curious. So this is the War World stuff continuing in action or Superman?
I can't remember which one it's in. It's definitely in one of them.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Good job, Connor.
Yeah. What I meant by that is it's only in one of them. It's because they are splitting into their own paths after this two-part story here.
Yes, which is why I was asking the question: which one is it going to be?
I'll find.
But yes, so it's a fine cliffhanger. I'm excited to see kind of what is an arc from Johnson going to look like now, because we've had the great two-parter that we gave, where we were showering with 9.5s and 10s during Future State. We've had the future stuff with the House of L, which was very different. Obviously, Taste Fairy done that, but it was again very kind of like just a snapshot of one thing. And then here it was a two-parter. But again, even though this is a bit more relevant to what the run's going to be, it was still very kind of contained in its messaging.
You want to see what it's like in an ongoing.
Yeah, I want to see what an ongoing arc that is now from Johnson. I'm excited to see that.
World Rising will be in action.
Okay, so
Thank you, Connor.
Curious to see sort of how that plot develops and how much it gets into some of the Future State stuff, and how if it changes it, if any, and what it does with it. Which makes me wonder, does that mean that is John going to be more of an Action Comics character because that's dealing with that stuff? Or is he actually being Superman because the War World stuff then is going to shift away from him and going to be all about...
That's my assumption is I would not be surprised if within a couple of arcs John is Superman of Earth like we saw in Future State, and he's doing that in the Superman book, and Action Comics will be following Clark doing the War World stuff. That would be my assumption.
That'd be a good reason to have him writing both books, is if he's doing a story where Clark is separated from everyone else and he has to do both the sort of the inspiration of Superman and how he's replaced by John while he's gone, but also the fight that Clark has to get back to Earth and to people.
It's two very different stories. Ultimately, it's weird that the John Kent stuff will be almost the traditional Superman stuff. Just here's Superman in Metropolis, right? Even though it'll have a little spin on it being John, but then that's your normal Superman story. Then your action stuff will be this War World stuff with Clark, and I mean, who knows how far down that line we'll get, but that will probably be very different. I mean, I assume so anyway.
Yeah. Assuming this is what actually happens and we're not just jumping to conclusions based on the Future State stuff, which is entirely possible. Yeah, so no, it was good. I think it's probably really about equal to the first half. I mean, I liked it a little bit more this half just because it was a little bit less focused on the part I wasn't as in love with, but
What were you not in love with?
Just this is meant to be your final death and whatever, and it's like we know it's
Oh,
all.
okay.
I, just,
All right, well, yeah, I wasn't here last time, so I
yeah.
didn't know what you.
All right. Well, it was basically just not that there's any reason to say that they can't do this stuff. It's just that I feel like we've been messing around with continuity, and we've literally just looked into a future. So to immediately say, "Oh, from the future, I know this is your ending," it just felt like it was just bad timing. I was like,
I think I like the twist of it because it plays for me because it is the ending of Clark as Superman, which is the point. As it, I think I don't know how clear it made this in the last issue, but it definitely makes it clear here that the records never say he died in this battle, just that not long after he wasn't Superman anymore.
Well, it doesn't matter what it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if he died or he stops being Superman. The point is more just that we're using the future to do things. Like we've just been doing that, and
I know, but I think that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is this is a continuation of that because this is leading into the future state stuff in the same way that Batman and Detective are dealing with all the Magistrate and Nakano stuff. It feels very much like no, this is still part of that future state timeline, and it doesn't feel like we're introducing something else here to me.
No, but again, you're kind of veering into this tangent to what my real complaint was, which is this is all irrelevant because this is about the first part of the story. But the point was that again we're doing stuff where John has this information from the vast future, right, way into year 3000 plus, and obviously everything in the future it can always change because we're never going to just get there because it's comics and it never can be, and you just kind of have to accept that. But we're just doing future state with all these different things, so it's not so like the stuff in Detective, the stuff of them like we're doing the canon stuff and we're doing stuff with the Magistrate setting up, none of that bothers me. That's just continuing threads that were set up. It was just returning to the mechanic of I know things from the future, but like again it's just a timing thing. It was just
no, I'm with you now.
Played that hand too many times recently.
I do actually think this issue is slightly better because I think it lands the emotion a touch more. Even though I think the first issue was very good still. This has the point at the end of it, right? This has the actual impact of what's going on with the message.
I will say I'm not so sure these two issues have to be two issues because a lot of the action fighting aliens, it looks fine, but I don't know if there's much of a difference in the flow of it, fight to fight between the two issues where I felt like we need to have all of them.
I do, so normally I would agree, right? But I do feel like that the fact he's doing action and Superman, this is a nice lead in to picking up both,
I'm actually going to defend it in a very specific structural reason for this story as to why I like it. Structure, the flow, I get where you come from. They're not that different. I think the key difference is in the first issue, it's Clark doing, taking the lead and going all in. And in this issue, it's John's issue. He's the one that's, making all the big plays. He's the one leading the action. And I think that's actually very, very relevant to the story in showing that contrast and how it changes.
Conceptually, I think that's a fine idea, but I think the art should be more different. I think the fights all feel kind of samey to me. And I wasn't like those 2-page spreads where they're fighting and they've got this is after the conversation, admittedly, which is where I think the issue gets interesting because I think the first few pages it feels like it's just kind of recapping almost what the first issue was about. But once we get to the fights and we have the it's a lot of angled lines and it's Superman like punching and John punching these green aliens. I don't know, like ultimately there's not really much of a sequential story told in the fights. It's just kind of lots of random moments of the fights happening, of punching or being hit by laser blasts or them firing back.
I would probably give you that in the first page of this major fight. But I think that second page where it shifts and John's jumping in the way and saving Clark, I think that is massive sequential storytelling in the art here, especially in the context of what this issue is about.
That one beat us. John jumping in and saving us, but the page before that with it's just it kind of feels like a lot of. I guess I'm saying I don't think the layout feels like like when I'm reading a really good fight in a comic, right, and I'm flowing. What's a recent example? Like the Suicide Squad Future State books, for example, right? That story. The Suicide Squad. Outsiders. That's the one.
I was gonna say,
There
did
you
we
go.
even get that?
The Outsiders one. The Outsiders
Yeah.
with katana and all that, right?
Sure.
Right. When I'm reading a really good fight scene, right, in a comic, like it'll lead my eye, and I'll feel like I'm getting all the beats of the motion and the action, and I'll understand beat to beat the progression of the fight, and it feels exciting because I'm going through the fight. It feels like, you know, for every use of the word, but it feels like a really good storyboarded kind of sequence that flows. And in some fights like this, the art is perfectly solid. Like, there's nothing wrong with the line work or anything like that. I just don't necessarily think that the actual punching back and forth of these green monsters, it has much going for it to progress throughout the page, until eventually, you know, it ultimately it's just he gets blasted in the next page, and then John has to come in.
I kind of get where you're coming from, because I've definitely felt that with stories in the past. I don't think I agree with it here, or at least I don't feel that. I mean, I can't say I don't agree that you feel it.
Yeah, because the page. So the page after John comes in and takes the blast for Superman, the page after that, where John seems to be punching one of the green things, and then he's flying away from her mouth in the middle. Superman's down at the bottom, throwing a punch. There's nothing about that page that has any sort of sequencing to me, but it also doesn't necessarily highlight one moment as a special moment, as like a full page spread. It just feels like a mess. No, I otherwise use the word mess. That's a bit harsh, but it feels like a barrage of action.
I think this is where I don't feel it, because I can see these exact panels, or this layout, like that page you're talking about. I can see that split up into traditional panels where it's, okay, this is in a box, and having this sense of separation that I think you're kind of talking about here, that gives it that sequential feeling. For me, like on that page there, the creature that he's like flying away from in the, I'm going to say the second panel, the top line of that, you know, its body functions as a panel cut off. So you have John at the top punching, that's one panel, and then the panel below is that there, and its body at the bottom actually separates into Clark. I can see the three panels very distinctly. And actually, I really appreciate how it uses the art in this separation for me, and it leads my eyes, for me, quite naturally, without just sticking them in boxes. So for me, I actually prefer this over a lot of kind of what you're describing.
I'm not really just talking about separation, though. I'm not saying it has to be in boxes.
No, but I can feel like I see, you know, the hit there, and then it moves down, and then there's the next beat. I feel that here with this flow personally.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't feel any sequencing here to this page. I just feel there's three individual things, and I can see them, but I'm not getting much of a feeling out of them. So yeah, I don't even know what the start of this whole debate was, but the point being is
just on the sequential art.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the fighting felt very similar to me in this sense, so I could have just done with much less of it, so it could just be more to the point. I feel like a lot of it was, you know, punching sake for punch. Like, I think the key beat in this whole fight is that Superman takes a hit at one point, John comes in and takes the hit for him, and then he takes over, right? That's the key beat they have to tell. But there's definitely a lot of it that I think could be trimmed down, and potentially get both issues into one.
I get where you're coming from. I think I like the pacing. Either in this fight, you know, the start of it, you see John watching Clark struggle and understanding that, you know, he needs to do something. That's when he jumps in, and you get the next page, and then he takes over for the third page. I really like the flow of it personally.
I think the fighting is the worst part of the two issues, I guess is what I'm saying. And because it takes up so much of the two issues, that's why I wasn't like I think they're solid enough, but it's why I wasn't just praising. Like when we did the first, you know, issue of Superman a couple of weeks ago, I wasn't ready because I was expecting to come in here and be like, oh, it's at least a 9. It's, you know, it's this glorious thing based on the previous issues that he did, Johnson that is. And I came into kind of like, you know, it's good, but let's not, you know, I'm not feeling wowed by it yet, and I'm still confident that I will as it gets going, but yeah, it is what it is.
Controversial opinion. I like it all. So, you know, I find very little to complain about with this issue until the backup. So, but
I didn't.
We'll get there.
I didn't read the backup either.
Neither did I. So we're good. So I can't give it for the full issue, but yeah.
Well, I guess we're just rating the book now then, because we're just waiting for the main story. All right, Matt, what are you giving Action Comics?
I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
Connor?
I'm gonna give it a 9. I loved it.
9. I am going to stick with what I gave the first one. Although I do think this one's a little bit better because I think the moment of John actually using the beam and flying back was all really good. But I'm going to stick with the 7.5 on this.